Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Let's see. Do we have any kind of a book stand or anything? Okay, so we're on Canto 1, Chapter 11. Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka, and it's what text have we got on the board? Text 38 is on the board. We may do the next one depending on how things go. So text 38. Etad Ishanam Ishasya Prakritisto Api Tadgunai Na Yujyate Sadatma Stire Yata Buddhish Tadashraya Etadishanam Ishasya Prakritistopi Tadgunai Nayujyate Sadatmastar Yata Buddhist Tad Ashraya Etadishanam Ishasya Prakritistopi Tadgunai Nayujyate Sadatmastar Yata Buddhist Tad Ashraya. Italishanamishyasya Prakritistopi Tadgunai Nayujyate Sadatmastar Yata Buddhistadashraya Itadishanam Prakritistopi Tadgunai Ayujyate Sadatmastar Yata Buddhischadashraya. Ladies. Etadishanam ishasya kapritistopi tadgunai nayujjate sadatmastaya yata buddhischadashraya. Somebody else? One more lady? Try it. Tadishanam isyasya prakritistopi tadunai nayujjate sadatmastaya yata buddhistadashraya. Etat, this, Ishanam, divinity, Ishasya, of the personality of Godhead, Prakritistaha, being in contact with material nature, Api, in spite of, Tat Gunai, by the qualities, Na, never, Yujjate, is affected, Sada Atma Sthai, by those who are situated in eternity. Jata, as is. Buddhi, intelligence. Tat, the Lord. Ashraya, those who are under the shelter of. Is this loud enough? Everybody can hear okay? Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. This is the divinity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though He is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by the material qualities. Please repeat. This is the divinity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though He is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by the material qualities. Purport. In the Vedas and Vedic literature, Shruti and Smriti, it is affirmed that the divinity there is nothing material. He is transcendental, nirguna, the supreme cognizant. Hari, or the personality of Godhead, is the supreme transcendental person situated beyond the range of material affection. These statements are also confirmed even by Acharya Shankar. One may argue that his relation with the goddess of fortune may be transcendental, but what about his relationship with the Yadu dynasty, being born in that family, or his killing of the non-believers like Jarasandha and other asuras, directly in contact with the modes of material nature? The answer is that the divinity of the personality of Godhead is never in contact with the qualities of material nature in any circumstances. Actually, He is in contact with such qualities. He is in contact with such qualities of material nature Actually, he is in contact with such qualities because he is the ultimate source of everything. Yet, he is above the actions of such qualities. He is known, therefore, as Yogeshwar, or the master of mystic power, or in other words, the all-powerful. Even his learned devotees are not affected by the influence of the material modes. The great 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan all came from greatly rich and aristocratic families. But when they adopted the life of mendicants at Vrindavan, superficially they appeared to be in a wretched condition of life, but factually they were the richest of all in spiritual values. Such Mahabhagavats, or first-grade devotees, although moving amongst men, are not contaminated by honor or insult, hunger or satisfaction, sleep or wakefulness, which are all resultant reactions of the 3 modes of material nature. Similarly, some of them are engaged in worldly dealings, yet they are unaffected. Unless these neutralities of life are there, one cannot be considered situated in transcendence. The divinity and his associates are on the same transcendental plane, and their glories are always sanctified by the action of Yogamaya, or the internal potency of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord are always transcendental, even if they are sometimes found to have fallen in their behavior. The Lord emphatically declares in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30 that even if an unalloyed devotee is found to be fallen due to a previous material contamination, he is nevertheless to be accepted as fully transcendental because of his being engaged 100% in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. The Lord protects him always because of his rendering service unto him, and the fallen conditions are to be considered accidental and temporary. They will vanish in no time. This is the divinity of the personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by the material qualities. It's a bit late now, but no. All right, let's just put it there. Now take the bookcase. Take the stand. Take it away. No, this. Thank you. All right. Sorry about this. Okay, so this is a mystery to ordinary men, how God can appear within the family of friendly circle of life. How a seemingly ordinary person, because people who have experience of saints and sadhus, they may understand that there's something special about a particular personality, either the Lord or his devotees. But in people in general who are not in touch with the modes of goodness, they generally think that even if there is someone such as Krishna, he's just some extraordinary person, but they don't take him as God. This is one of the big problems. When Prabhupada, if you look at the progress of his preaching, a large part of his time was spent trying to get people just to accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, I remember when we were in Kurukshetra, in November of 1975. Then Prabhupada, he'd been invited there. They were doing some development in the Kurukshetra area. There was one gentleman, his name was Gulzarilal Nanda. He had been formerly a prime minister, just temporarily, of India. He was deeply involved with Gandhi and all the people that were there playing politics to get India free. So when Prabhupada went to Kurukshetra, they were hoping that he would buy some land there and then set up an ISKCON center. Because Prabhupada went there thinking that they might give us the land and then we might set up a center. Actually, Ambarish Prabhu was there on that trip also, and he had just given Prabhupada $150,000 to begin a Varnashram college. For various reasons that didn't manifest. But anyway, we went there. There was Harikesh was there, Prabhupada was there, I was there, Ambarish was there, and a devotee from Punjab, Chaitya Guru. So in Kurukshetra, there's the place, of course, where Krishna is said to have spoken the Bhagavad Gita. So that's not exactly in the Brahma Sarovar. The main lake there is the huge lake where people go and bathe every year on the eclipses and other special occasions. So they were fixing that up. But about 7 kilometers away, there was another place called Jyotisar. And that's a much smaller place. But it's said to be the place where Krishna actually spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And after we'd looked around, Prabhupada asked us, what do you think about these places? So Harikesh said, well, Brahma Sarovar, that's like the heavenly planets. But he said, Jyotisar, that's like Vaikuntha. So Prabhupada was happy with that, and he concurred. It's a fact. So speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, right there, Kurukshetra is right there. Yeah, you can go and visit the places where the Lord performed his pastimes, especially this speaking of Bhagavad Gita. But unfortunately, they have no idea actually who Krishna really is. Prabhupada at lunchtime, he was taking his massage. So Mr. Nanda came and he sat for a half hour. Prabhupada was sitting on a mat getting his massage. Mr. Nanda was chit-chatting with him. So at one point Prabhupada quoted from the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about the sun god Vivishvan and how the transcendental knowledge is passed down from one personality to another. Vivishvan and who else? What's his name? Huh? I can't hear. Ishvaku, Manu, like that. So when Prabhupada quoted that verse, because he said it with the firm conviction that there is actually a supreme person in the sun, Vivasvan. You can say supreme in the material sense. But there was such a person as the sun god. So when Prabhupada spoke like that, this man became immediately baffled, confused. Now he was supposed to be setting up, he'd gotten a huge grant from the Indian government, about 1.5 crores, which at that time was about $1.5 million. It was quite a bit of money. And he was developing or redeveloping the Kurukshetra area. But when Prabhupada started to speak as if the sun god was a real personality and as if Krishna was a real personality, the man became bewildered. So this is the problem. People don't actually take the Bhagavad Gita literally anymore. They think it's just some symbolic representation, some fairy story. Yeah. Similarly, because Gozarlal Nanda was one of the persons that was working with Gandhi, so he was one of his close associates. So later on in that year, actually about a year later in December of 76, Prabhupada went to what was called the Gita Pratishthan. So that was a meeting that had been organized by some of the followers of Gandhi. One of them, his name was Vinoba Bhave. So he was considered to have inherited the spiritual mantle from Gandhi. Yeah, Gandhi was the leader. This man was one of the people helping. After Gandhi left the planet, then Mr. Nanda, what's his name? Vinoba Bhave. You have to excuse me, my brain doesn't work sometimes. Vinoba Bhave. So he decided that there should be some effort made to spread the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, to save the young people from, at that time the communists were very active, lots of young people were joining them, and things were becoming very materialistic. So he had a noble sentiment, let's say, in that they wanted to somehow or another bring Bhagavad Gita back into the center of people's lives. So they called this meeting. There was about 24 representatives from various pseudo-spiritual groups. Maybe there was one or two of them that were actually spiritual, I don't know. But Prabhupada was invited. So he went there. Of course, he was the best proponent of the Bhagavad Gita. And so they wanted to hear from him. They had 2 days of meetings. One day was where we sat, we chanted some mantras, there was some opening ceremonies, then we went for lunch. Then afterwards, in the afternoon, again Prabhupada was taken around the area where the Gita Pratishthan was being held. So that was a place called Wardha. It's kind of like smack in the middle of India, not very far from Nagpur. And it was the place where the Congress party had conducted most of their meetings. So in that place there was a village that had been set up by Gandhi called the Gandhi Ashram. And he was staying there. So sometimes when the politics became too strenuous for him, he would retreat to this Gandhi Ashram and he would spin cotton because that relaxed his mind. That was his shelter, spinning cotton thread. So we were taken on a look around the place. This is the hut where Gandhi slept. This is the hut where Gandhi did his political business. There was a telephone there, And this way they were showing all the different places where Gandhi had his pastimes. Then at the end of the day, just on dusk, then they held a ceremony, which they did every evening. There was an area, maybe as big as this room. It was scattered with stone, small stone chips. There was a seat that Gandhi had once sat on. They would bring that out, like our Vyasa san. They put that on the ground. Then they began to chant. So they said some verses from Bhagavad Gita. Then they said some verses from the Quran. Then from the Bible. I don't know whether the Buddhists got a look in there as well. But it was anybody and everybody. Yeah, all inclusive. And so they did all their chanting. Prabhupada just sat there very solemnly. At the end of it, then it was time to go. So they asked Prabhupada to sign the visitor's book. It's still there, that book, I've seen it. And Prabhupada wrote in the book there that today we have visited the Gandhi Ashram. It is so peaceful and sublime. I have asked them to chant Hare Krishna. You can take that whichever way you want. Prabhupada knew which way he meant it. In other words, it's not interesting for devotees to hear about ordinary people. And they are ordinary people. Gandhi's an ordinary man. Maybe a little bit bigger in the eyes of some. But even in India, not everybody was a follower of Gandhi. Yeah, especially here in Bengal, they like better Subhash Chandra Bose. Yeah, he had a big following. He had such a big following, actually, that he was driven out of the Congress party by Gandhi. Although he was the president, he had been voted in as the president of the Congress party. But when Gandhi found out, because Gandhi had his non-violence idea, and Subhash Chandra Bose was the opposite. Yeah, he said the only way you'll get these Britishers out of India is to fight them. So he was recruiting. So Gandhi didn't like that, and he had him removed. Later on, Bose flew to Germany to recruit Indians that had been captured in the Second World War to leave what they were doing and come and join what he called the Indian National Army. And he came. Actually, what happened to him, I read recently, this is a bit off topic, but I read recently that it's always been a mystery what happened to Subhash Chandra Bose. There's some story put out that he was killed in a plane crash flying to Singapore or from Singapore, and somehow or another the plane crashed and he was killed. Actually, there's another story to that where he was flying out, he did crash, but they captured him, he was not killed. And the Russians, he was given to the Russians, and the Russians kept him in a concentration camp for about 5 years. And every time they offered the new Indian government, here's your man, such an important man, you take him. But they refused. The Indian government refused to take him back. So after about 5 years, they gave the okay, and Subhash Chandra Bose was killed. Anyway, that's another story, but I heard Prabhupada say something similar to that. Anyway, the point is that, we'll get back to the Gandhi ashram. Gandhi was there, such an important person, and supposedly, very fond of Bhagavad Gita. But what is this Bhagavad Gita? His Bhagavad Gita is simply that, the Pandavas are the five senses, and this is that, and this is that, and so many concoctions about what it might mean. But ask them to take Krishna as an actual historical figure, or more than that, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were not interested. So when we were leaving the Gandhi ashram, I opened the car door for Srila Prabhupada. As he got into the car, he said out loud to nobody in particular, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. And he got in the car and we left. And he made the point, he said that they've done all this development. They claim to be, chanters of Bhagavad Gita, and they're having this Gita Pratishthan. But he said in the whole ashram, there was not one single photo or picture of Krishna. Not one. It's all dry Mayavadi. And if you talk about the personality of Godhead, it's a bewilderment. They can't accept it. So this is the problem. These are the leaders of society, but they don't understand the value of what they've got, because they never attempt to translate the Bhagavatam, because in the Bhagavatam we get so many descriptions about Krishna and his devotees and their loving exchanges, and these are all, Prabhupada stressed again and again, fully spiritual. They have no material tinge. Material modes of nature cannot touch Krishna and Krishna's devotees. When Krishna went to visit Baulasva and Sahadev, I think it was, right? Sava. He went to Matila. There were two devotees that wanted to see him. Who was the other one? Huh? Baulasva and Shrutadev, I think. Am I right? You have to help me. Nobody reads the Bhagavatam. Anyway, they both wanted Krishna to come and visit their place. So Krishna said, I don't have enough time to go one after another. So he appeared in both places at once. So he appeared in both, but not just Krishna. He was wherever Krishna went, he was accompanied by great sages and saints. So when Krishna went to both places, they also followed him. So there was Krishna and all the munis and yogis and saintly persons. They all went to Baulasva's place, and the same thing was going on at Shrutadev's place as well. So it's not just even Krishna, it's Krishna's followers, Krishna's associates. They're also fully transcendental, fully spiritual. So in this way, if we understand the Bhagavatam properly, then the fruit of that should be that we should come to the point of surrender, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, relishing his pastimes, and entering into them. This is the ambition of a devotee. And the non-devotees, what is their ambition? At most, they want moksha. When they become disgusted with material nature, they become disgusted with the mode of passion and ignorance. They want to elevate themselves, but their idea, due to a poor fund of knowledge, is that to get out of the modes of material nature, you have to completely renounce everything and give it up and merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord. And only when you become devoid of any sense of personality, you have no legs, no arms, no head, no brain, then you're liberated. That's not liberation. And that's a foolish idea by men with a poor fund of knowledge. So Prabhupada, his main goal, if you like, actually about a week after we'd been to the Gita Pratishthan meeting, Prabhupada was in Bombay and he was talking with one visitor, and he said, "This is the seed of this movement." He used that word several times. This is the seed of this movement, that these rascals are misrepresenting Krishna. So therefore I must do something to stop it. So that was Prabhupada's idea. That was the seed of his preaching, that Krishna should be understood as the personality of Godhead, as a completely transcendental personality who is not tinged in any way by the modes of nature. And if he comes in contact with modes of material nature at all, it is to control it. He's the actual controller. Yeah. People, when they talk about Krishna, then this verse, Ishwar Sarvabhutanam Rijesha Arjuna Tishtati, Ishwar Sarvabhutanam. Krishna is the Ishwar, the supreme controller. So when we accept that, then he reveals all of his pastimes, paraphernalia, personalities that travel with him. Everything becomes very clear, because Krishna is not an ordinary living being. So these rascals, Prabhupada said, they've ruined spiritual heritage of India by misrepresenting the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Same thing when he went to Kurukshetra. At the end of the day, when we drove back to Delhi, then Prabhupada told us, he said they spent so much money, 1.5 crores, on developing Kurukshetra, and all they've got is they built one statue of Gozalal Nanda. He's the guy who's in charge of it. He got the money from the government. So the first thing that he did was he had his followers build a 15-foot tall statue of himself. So Prabhupada said, he's built such a big thing of him, statue of himself, but you'll not find a single picture or a single deity of Krishna anywhere in Kurukshetra, built by these people. They had given a name to the organization, Manava Dharma, the Dharma of Men. So Prabhupada said they call it Manava Dharma, I call it Pashu Dharma. Dogs, hogs, camels and asses. They never glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't believe that there is such a personality. Prabhupada, when he was preaching there in Kurukshetra, he gave a class. When was that? In Chandigarh. We'd gone to Chandigarh in late October, mid-October of '76. And Prabhupada gave a talk at the Rotary Club. So the same theme, he told them, Kurukshetra is just 3 or 4 hours away from here, the same Kurukshetra where Krishna appeared and spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, but you don't give any glorification of him. You don't recognize even that he exists. So it's a big problem. At least Prabhupada saw that as one of the main missions in his efforts to please his spiritual master, to please the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They're the ones who wrote all the pastimes, all the different transcendental attributes of the Supreme Lord. Just now, a few weeks ago, Indradunya Maharaj, he's in Vrindavan. He went to visit the Vrindavan Research Center. So in the Vrindavan Research Center, it's just down the road actually from Krishna Balaram Mandir. So they've got over 32,000 original handwritten manuscripts, put there by the 6 Goswamis and their followers. And they're just simply sitting there rotting away. So they're approaching Indradunya Maharaj and devotees of ISKCON. Now they've got some new management. Previously the management there was not very friendly. Now they're friendly. So they want us to come in and help to preserve this literature. But you can imagine what topics they're writing about. You can't write 32,000 manuscripts about a non-entity. That it's all, there's no personality, everything is just simply void. You can't write 32,000 manuscripts about a void. Those manuscripts are full of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and his associates, and they've been left there as a heritage for future generations to come to the point of actual realization of who the Supreme Lord is. There is the Supreme Lord, he has his associates, they're completely transcendental, they have nothing to do with the realm of time. Krishna says, Kalosmi, I am time. That means that the modes of material nature, which are activated by time at the beginning of the universe, those modes of material nature are under the control of the controller of time. Time is the ultimate factor that activates everything in the material world. In the spiritual world, time is noticeable, Prabhupada says, by its absence. All the activities that Krishna performs, all the pastimes that he performs are endlessly flowing in, like the ocean. So many waves are coming, you can never count how many. So in the same way, Krishna's activities are endlessly flowing. There's a preface in Prabhupada's 2nd volume of the 1st canto that he wrote when he was in Vrindavan. So in that preface there, he mentions that I have I think he calls him his atheist friend. Anyway, he says that he has one friend of his who was querying, why are you at such an old age? He was 64 when he started translating the Bhagavatam. So the friend was astonished that, why are you doing this? This is 18,000 verses. Prabhupada was advertising that he was going to do it in 60 volumes. So Prabhupada wrote in his preface, I was questioned, why are you making this attempt? So his reply was that, what is that? 18,000 verses, 60 volumes. In the spiritual, even in the heavenly planets, where people have got far more advanced intelligence. So in the heavenly planets, they have millions and millions of volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Millions and millions. What we have is just a small fragment, because Prabhupada said our brains are filled with cow dung. We can't understand. But in the heavenly planets, there are millions and millions of the stories and recitals of the personality of Godhead is going on perpetually, eternally. When you go up to Brahmaloka and beyond, Janaloka, Mahaloka, Tapaloka, What are they doing there? Are they just simply sitting there meditating on nothing? No, they're actually sitting there glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, all of his activities and pastimes. So, in the Bhagavatam, we find life. With the non-devotees, there's nothing but death. That's all. Completely the opposite. They don't know anything about the Lord, and therefore they have no hope of getting out of this material world. Because Krishna, Sridham Sarvabhutanam, he's the friend of every living being. And when he desires, or when we desire, then he reciprocates with us. And Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati, you become very peaceful. That's the first symptom of real spiritual life. You become very peaceful at heart, because the activities of the Lord, they're always being narrated within and without in this material world. So it's a little late. I'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a nice class. Prabhuji, you said that in heavenly planets there are millions and millions of verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, so they are repeatedly glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we also read that demigods pray for the human form of life in this Bharatvarsh.
The demigods are what?
Demigods pray for this human form of life in the holy land of Bharatvarsh. So, how to relate it? I mean, if they are already relishing the pastimes of Krishna and glorifying him in the heavenly planet, so why they are hankering for it?
Yeah, it depends on which demigods you're talking about. Not every demigod is equal. Just like on the human platform, some people are intelligent, some people are not so intelligent. You got your Varnashram system, Shudras, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, Brahmanas, and then beyond that the Vaishnavas. So not everybody's the same. In the heavenly planets, not everybody's the same. The Charanas, the Vidyadharas, the Gandharvas, there are so many different rankings, and on each planet, the business, at least on the upper planets, the business is glorifying the Lord. But some of them are pure devotees, and some of them are not. They're devotees, but they're not fully purified. They have some ambition. But on the highest planetary systems, you know, where Prabhupada said that's where the messiahs come from, just like Jesus is referred to as a messiah. So Prabhupada said there are planets of messiahs. They come down occasionally to inform human society, because the human life is the best platform to make advancement from. It's not all good and it's not all bad. Yeah, it's a mixture of two. Just as we are fortunate to sit here and discuss about Krishna consciousness, and our Krishna consciousness movement is spreading all over the world, practically unimpeded at this point. I mean, there's been some problems, but on the whole, there are millions of devotees now on this planet. So Prabhupada could see that. Sometimes when the newspapers, reporters would ask him, how many followers have you got? Prabhupada would say, oh, 10,000. I mean, if you added them all up, there was probably a thousand or a couple of thousand. But to Prabhupada's vision, he saw there's already so many devotees. Just got to expose them. So the demigods, they work in tandem with Krishna. Some of them work more directly, just like we read when Krishna appears, so many personalities, his friends and compatriots, but as also the demigods, they take birth before him to make the ground fertile for Krishna's appearance. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada, he appeared to be alone. Actually, most of his preaching in the early days, he was by himself. Nobody to help him, no money, no friends, nowhere to stay when he went to New York. But still he was determined to push on because he never felt alone. He always felt that his spiritual master was right there making arrangements for him. And at a certain point, when things became mature enough, it burst out. So we have now on this planet devotees, groups of devotees springing up everywhere. But we see places like the Middle East, and all these other unfortunate places where so much fighting and bombing, and so they have no contact, they have no chance to take to Krishna consciousness because there's so many demons. So on this planet you've got devotees and demons. On the higher planets, mainly all devotees. On the lower planets, all demons. So there's a mixture. So we should consider ourselves fortunate that we're part of the mix. And the idea that what you quoted there, that sometimes the demigods, they want to take birth on this planet. Yes, some of them do if they're fortunate, because in one lifetime on this human platform, 70, 80, 90 years at most, you can complete your business and go back home, back to Godhead. But if we don't take advantage of what's been done for us, just like Prabhupada wrote 80 books. Who's written so much literature? And the topic is so deep, practically nobody can understand. But somehow or another, that's transforming the planet. When Prabhupada was traveling and preaching, he wasn't sleeping. Sometimes I saw he would usually take an evening massage around about 10 o'clock. And sometimes after we finished giving him his massage, we went to bed, the servants. Prabhupada would immediately rise up and he would work throughout the night until about 4 o'clock or Mangalarati time. No sleep. But no ordinary person can do that. Yeah, we look at pictures of Prabhupada, we think that he's like us. His body grows old. It's limited in so many ways. But actually, Prabhupada, there was a meeting Prabhupada had with George Harrison from the Beatles. He gave us the Bhaktivedanta Manna. So Prabhupada in 76, he went there and he invited George to come for lunch. So he came. And he gave him one of the new editions of the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It had just been printed just before Prabhupada came to the manor. So he gave one to he gave one to George Harrison. So George was kind of astonished. He said, I don't know how he does it. He said, I can't even read so much stuff. What to speak about, write it. And Prabhupada smiled. He said, yes. He said, no ordinary human being can do this. He didn't say, I'm an extraordinary. But he just made the point that an ordinary person cannot write like this. It's not possible. We had, before that, a couple of weeks before, we were in New York, and one reporter came from UP. That's a press service. So his name was George Orwell, actually. And so we showed this reporter some of the books Prabhupada had written, and he was astonished. I mean, this man was a professional writer, and a good one. He was the religions editor of AP, which AP means Associated Press. That means not only what they write is in one newspaper, but it actually is circulated in all the newspapers. So this man knew about writing. But when he saw the volume, the amount of work that Prabhupada had done in presenting Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, so many books, relentlessly pushing on. He was astonished. He said, I don't know how you can do that. He said, just to get 4 or 5 books in a lifetime, that would be some achievement. So he was very impressed. Similarly, many other personalities. There was some professors that came to see Prabhupada in Toronto, and they saw the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and they asked Prabhupada, how do you find the time to write? Yeah, just because they knew that Prabhupada was running this worldwide society, and at the same time his literary output was beyond belief. So they couldn't understand, how is it that you can do so much? So he told them, well, he said, I go to bed, I sleep for 2 hours, I get up, I work through the night. So in this way, everywhere I go, this dictaphone is there, and my disciples, they're producing the books from that. So in that way, he said, little drops of water wear away a stone. So they appreciated it very much. There was actually a Professor Dimmock. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the original Macmillan Gita. It was a softbound with a kind of a purplish colour, and it had an introduction or a foreword by this man, Edward Dimmock. So Edward Dimmock, he was considered to be the foremost scholar on Gaudiya Vaishnavism, at least in America. He wasn't Indian, he was an American. So he was working on translating the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that was going to be like his magnum opus, the work of his lifetime. If he could just translate the verses from Bengali into English, that was his big thing. So our devotees, they went to see him in 74 or 75. Prabhupada had just finished working on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it had taken him 18 months. And he was still doing his other books at the same time. So it took him 18 months. He did the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, not just translated it, but transliterations, translations, purports, paintings. I mean, it was a wonderful achievement. So our devotees, they were on the library party. So they were touring America, and they were convincing the universities and colleges to buy Prabhupada's books on the basis of standing order. That means whatever books that we had, they would buy immediately, and there was a standing order for whatever books would come later on, and they would pay for that. So the way that the devotees were getting these orders was they would go to a university, they go and visit different professors, and there was a system whereby if a book was required for a course, then the librarian would be given a requisition sheet with the information on it, and he would purchase the books and keep them in the library. So our boys, they were going around to all the professors, and they were getting the professors to fill out these, our men filled out the requisition, they got the professors to sign it, and they give them a free book. So that way, in every university, they get 4 or 5 professors to, support that the library should buy these books. So one place they went, I'm not sure whether it was Chicago University, but Professor Dimmock, he was teaching there. So they went to see him, and they showed him all of Prabhupada's books, and especially the Chaitanya Charitamrita had just been completed, 17 volumes, very elaborate, wonderful presentation. This man had been working for years, slowly translating one Bengali verse after another. When he saw what Prabhupada had done in only 18 months, they said he practically had a heart attack. That was his whole life's work gone up in smoke. Srila Prabhupada, So Prabhupada may have looked to have been an ordinary man. To some people he did. Not everybody that saw Srila Prabhupada saw him for what he was. Some of us did. Well, I wouldn't say that we did, but we knew he was extraordinary. I'm not sure exactly how we each perceived Prabhupada, but we knew that we had to surrender to him, and that he knew the truth, and that if we just stuck with Prabhupada, we would learn it also. That was his promise. So we had programs Prabhupada toured all over the world. There were so many people that saw Srila Prabhupada. There were thousands of people that used to come to the pandals here in India. But out of all of those people, who actually took up Krishna consciousness? Who actually understood who Prabhupada really was and what he was really trying to do? Not many. Prabhupada had about 5,000 initiated disciples. It's not that much. But this is the situation. Not everybody can understand or perceive the spiritual potency of the Lord or his associates. When Krishna was on the planet, not everybody thought that, he was the Supreme Lord. Just like Pondraka, you know that story. He was trying to cheat people that I'm the Supreme. So how did he do that? He fastened 2 artificial arms so that he looked like he had 4 arms, and he was claiming to be Narayan. But when the real Narayan came, immediately killed. So Prabhupada's business was to kill all the atheists, either literally or otherwise, but kill their philosophy. Stop these people from cheating, advertising Gita Pratishthan, when actually they had no faith in the personality of Krishna whatsoever. So this is our inheritance, to keep Prabhupada alive, keep him in our midst. Now we're going to have our installation of Srila Prabhupada's new Murti in a couple of days' time. So we're building this TLVP. So why? Just to impress upon people that Krishna is not an ordinary person. Prabhupada is not an ordinary person. They're transcendental personalities, and if we somehow or another can please them, then our way back home to get out of this miserable material world, that will be opened up. The door will open. So, is that all right? Any other questions? Comments? Okay, we'll finish there. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.